Mr. President, today is the 1st of October. Today is a day that has long been known as a day when the Affordable Care Act will first come into force and exchanges across the country will begin to be open to citizens of all different backgrounds and walks of life for them to seek insurance, affordable, accessible insurance on these exchanges, the next step in the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. And on one level, it's a good day, because tens of millions of Americans are today gaining access to quality, affordable care. I'm told that since midnight, nearly 3 million people visited healthcare.gov, and 80,000 or more have called a hotline, and 60,000 have requested live chats. Applications and enrollment in these marketplaces are moving forward at a record pace. So on some level, this is an important day, because millions of Americans across dozens of states are getting access to quality, affordable health care. On the other hand, as you well know, Mr. President, this is an embarrassing, a difficult, a disappointing day. The federal government of the United States is shut down. As of midnight last night, the President and the Office of Management and Budget directed all the different executive agencies and offices to begin shutting down. 800,000 federal employees are spending today at home, not helping small businesses with loans from the SBA, not helping move forward grants that invest in improving our infrastructure, not moving forward federally funded research that might find the cure for cancer or for MS or for autism, not helping applicants get college loans, not helping disabled veterans get access to the benefits they earned through their service to our country. Mr. President, we could go on and on about all the different ways that these federal employees, these public servants, are today not able to help our constituents, our fellow citizens. And I've gotten a fair number of contacts today, phone calls to my office, emails to my office, folks connecting with me on Facebook or through Twitter or directly or indirectly, just to convey how frustrated and upset they are. And I just want to try and put all this in some context for the folks who might be watching. What is it we are fighting over? As best I can understand, a few members of this body and a few members of the House of Representatives have shut this government down in an effort to try and stop the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. That's what this is all about. They have refused to take up and pass a bill that would fund the continuation of the U.S. federal government. And in so doing, they're doing about $10 billion a week of damage to our economy. And they're doing all that damage I referred to in terms of hundreds of thousands of federal employees not able to help improve our communities or keep us safe or move our country forward. So why are we doing this? Mr. President, I think it's been said for many years that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, the House of Representatives has repealed the Affordable Care Act, I think 42 times now. And as best I understand, this bill, which was passed by both chambers and signed into law, and then challenged at length in the Supreme Court and upheld, and then the central issue of the last presidential election, which wasn't particularly close, this law of the land, which is moving forward in its implementation today, will not be stopped by shutting down the federal government. So this is a strategy that never really had a serious chance of success. And despite very, very long quasi-filibuster speeches on this floor, and despite all sorts of public pronouncements, this strategy had no chance, actually, of working. So what is the point? Why is this federal government shut down? Mr. President, it seems to me that it's simply a demonstration of pique, a temper tantrum, a fit by a small number of folks who've promised people back home that they won't allow this government to go forward with the Affordable Care Act. And what I think we should be doing instead is working together across the aisle to improve the Affordable Care Act. It's not perfect. Of course, it's got blemishes. There will be hiccups. There will be inconsistencies and issues that need to be worked out as this law is implemented. And we ought to be working together across the aisle, the Senate and House together, to make sure that it's done in an affordable, sustainable, and positive way, rather than a small minority digging in their heels and imposing all of this wreckage for their own partisan goals. Well, let me share with you some of the thoughts I've gotten from folks at home. who are not exactly happy about our having a federal government shutdown today. First, Ray White of Ellendale, Delaware, wrote, "I'm a veteran and a U.S. government employee. The furlough and sequester we already went through back in August of this year cost me 20% of my paycheck for over a month, causing my bills to get out of control. I'd like to know how to make ends meet when I have no money to pay my bills, and lawmakers in the Capitol want to put me out of work again." Well, to Ray and your family, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the fact that we've got a few folks in the House of Representatives who won't take up a bill to keep our government open. As the senator from Minnesota just recently related, if the Speaker of the House would just let that bill get to the floor, it would pass. There are more than enough Democrats and Republicans in the House to pass that bill if the House would just take it up. I don't think there's any question who caused this shutdown and why. Chief Warrant Officer II, Christopher Slicer of Newark, wrote me to say, "As a federal technician and Army National Guardsman, I find it ridiculous that those we've elected as our representatives can't do their jobs. If I wasn't doing my job, I'd be fired or reprimanded. There's no excuse, and I don't care what party it is, for not passing whatever it is that needs to be done to have a budget. For our government to shut down shows how incompetent our government is to the world, and worse, its own citizens. There are thousands of us federal employees who've had to endure furloughs already, and you're telling me we may have more." Well, to Chief Warrant Officer Christopher Slicer, I apologize that this Congress is unable to come together across this partisan divide, and we have another needless manufactured crisis that just a few irresponsible members insisted on to make a partisan point. I think Chief Warrant Officer Christopher Slicer makes a particularly important point, that this government shutdown shows our weaknesses, our inabilities to get together across this partisan divide, not just to our citizens, but to the world. And at a time of real instability and real threats to our national security around the world, I think this government shutdown is not just harmful to our communities, our families, our economy, but to our country and its standing in the world. Last, I'll read, if I might, a note from Lori Tanka of Dover. Lori wrote me to say, "It seems like we just got through the government furloughs, and now there's a good chance you're going to shut down the government." This came yesterday. "My husband is employed at Dover Air Force Base on civil service. This makes it difficult for ordinary families to make ends meet. I'm getting discouraged with the way things are being done in Washington these days. America's in debt because we overspend, then you make hardworking average employees pay the price for it repeatedly." She concludes, "Morale is low, and frankly, I've lost confidence in the bureaucracy. I wonder if things would be different if this were an election year. Would you shut the government down then? I think not. Show you care and get something done now." Well, to Lori, I'm sorry for the impact on you and your family of this shutdown, but it is the result of a few irresponsible members of the House of Representatives. If the Speaker would just put on the floor for a vote what has been passed here in the Senate, we would have a government reopened today, and we could get back to the business of this country. We could get back to conference on the budget and make progress on investing in making our communities safer, our families stronger, our schools and our students better educated, and in doing the investment in our infrastructure and research we need to move our economy forward. Let me conclude by sharing with you this. I have a number of wonderful folks on my staff who work in my offices in Delaware and in Washington, whose real focus is constituent service. When folks call my office and they've got a problem or an issue at home that we need to help with, they do an amazing job. One young man, Brendan Mackey, recently joined my staff. He's a two-tour veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, and he works tirelessly to make sure that the veterans who contact my office get the help they need. A staff sergeant recently contacted us. He'd been wounded in Baghdad in 2007 by an IED, and he'd lost the documentation for his Purple Heart. Well, Brendan dove right in and did all sorts of work, collected sworn statements and medical records, and submitted everything to the relevant Army Review Board, and has managed to get his Purple Heart reissued. That's the kind of casework that my folks do day in and day out, making sure that whether it's accessing veterans benefits or disability benefits, Social Security, or medals earned in service to this nation in combat, that the men and women of Delaware who contact my office and who rely on me and their services for great constituent support can get that help. Well, sadly, Brendan is home today, not able to serve the people of Delaware, not able to do his job. If I might, Mr. President, I simply close by saying this. This is the latest in a series of manufactured crises, of completely senseless, self-inflicted wounds, and it is up to the Speaker of the House and the folks in the House of Representatives to take up and pass the bill we have sent them days ago that would allow this government to reopen and allow the leaders of this chamber and the other chamber to move forward on dealing with the real issues facing our country.